Today's video is brought to you by my amazing patrons on Patreon. Priority deck requests and extended discussions are just some of the many perks you get for being a patron. Consider supporting the channel today.
Welcome back to today's build. I'll be your guide to this wonderful game we all love. Let's get started.
Today's deck is a mouthful. His name is Korvold, Gleeful Glutton, and this is Granny's Cooking. Korvold is a 4/4 with Flample and Haste, which are just the best words to see here. He gets cheaper to cast with each card type that we've sacrificed this turn, and gets larger and draws more cards with each card type in our yard when we connect. This first ability is doing the most work when we maximize the number of sackable card types in the deck. And since we also need sack outlets, we'll put a premium on card slots that sacrifice themselves, preferably for free since a sacrifice that costs us mana isn't discounting Korvold very well. This last ability is doing the most when we maximize the number of card types in our graveyard, so a lot of our token making pieces are going to have to be removed because they cease to exist once they're in the graveyard. This Korvold is a tough nut to crack. The setup cost of getting him into play is fairly high, and once he's in play, if we don't protect him, we have to spend many more turns setting back up to get him back into play. In this sense, Korvold really is a glutton because he eats up all our card slots. That said, I don't know how realistic a win that relies solely on Korvold is. Despite the significant setup cost for Korvold, it's actually fairly easy to get him down early. But notice something about Korvold. Nothing about him asks you to play him as early as possible, and in fact playing him early might be an invitation for removal since nobody's spent their interaction yet. I think instead it might be better to view Korvold as a late game bomb in our command zone that waits a bit to fire off, which also happens to be what some of the better cards in this deck do. These Rattlesnake cards signal our opponents of their danger and have lasting impacts on gameplay, potentially slowing our opponents down, while things like Sagas build up value over time and then sacrifice themselves for free. And since lands like these all enter tapped, and cards like these need time to be doing the most work, it seems like slowing down and playing a more control-based build is a better fit for all of the cards in orbit around this behemoth. That said, this Korvold is much weaker than the original, and there are a lot of obstacles holding it back. I think the highest he can really get up to is a very fun, if skill-intensive, 6, so manage your expectations accordingly. Neither the Invasion nor Vraska can sacrifice themselves and have no real way to put themselves into the graveyard. Given how unaggressive our board presence will be, I doubt we'll have what we need to be able to protect Vraska or flip the battle, so these cards seem like they exist solely to sit in our graveyard. We can't rely on having Korvold in play for long durations, so cards that don't affect the game outside of those durations could be put to better use elsewhere. And while Baba Saga has a lot of words in common with our commander, they're not really on the same page about the method of sacrifice. If we sacrifice our tools to Baba, then we aren't getting the benefits that we wanted off of. And we can't readjust the whole deck to accommodate this one card that we can't rely on always having access to. I'd honestly rather just play Painful Truths in this slot than draw cards. Korvold, Faker's King, Jury, Master of the Review, and Mayhem Devil all seem like relics of the original Korvold. But our Korvold cares about sacrificed types, not quantity of sacrifices. So we aren't sacrificing nearly the same number of things that the original did. So the triggers we get on these are rather limited. They're still useful, of course, but we'll swap them out for these. Springbloom Druid and Entis Restoration are trying really hard to be Harrow, but they're not. Harrow can be used the turn we cast our commander to ramp for the future while breaking even on mana for Korvold, because those lands enter untapped, while these lands don't. Professional Facebreaker is really great at making treasures in a go-wide deck, but we're going tall with Korvold and not really engaging in combat before that. So we'll be making these swaps. So what do our lands look like? Because Korvold wants us to sacrifice permanent types, and lands are permanents, we want ways to sacrifice lands. but fetch lands are no good here. We can sacrifice them on demand, but they can't tap for mana if we do that. These lands are great because we can use them for mana before we're ready for Korvold, and sacrifice them when we are ready for an extra boost. After that, all we really need to worry about is mana fixing. So what's our timeline? Turn 1, we can play Goldhound, Haywire Might, and Orcish Lumberjack to set up for our commander. We can also play Wild Growth, Tinderwall, or Soul Ring for some extra mana. Turn 2, we can play Gaia's Touch, Kalni Heart Expedition, or Sakura Tribe Elder along the same lines, though we also have Sela Primordium, Cinder Vines, and Ratchet Bomb as our interaction. We can also play out Vessel of Volatility, Reckless Barbarian, and Hajar Loyal Bodyguard to ramp into and protect our commander. Turn 3, we can play out Glittering Stockpile, the Weatherseed Treaty, or Growth Spasm to put down some hard ramp while setting up a sacrifice for Korvold. We can also play any of the Ramos artifacts, but what I'm most excited to have is the Jade Orb of Dragonkind. With it, we can power out Korvold and even protect him for free for a turn. Turn 4, we start controlling the board with more sagas, and profitably disrupt our opponents with Visions of Ruin, Siphon Mind, and Cruelty of Gix. Turn 5, we can prep for our commander with Bloodmist, Karlach Fury of Avernus, and Tyrant Guard. If we need to, we can also deploy Knight Incarnate and Elvish Dreadlord to sacrifice to Metamorphosis or Diabolic Intent later. Then we'll slam down Korvold, making all the necessary sacrifices and attack to refuel our hand and start digging for our win condition. But in the meantime, we can keep our opponents busy by reanimating any permanents we don't need in the Yard with Revival Experiment, and take extra combats with Fury of the Horde and seize the day. Lastly, we'll close things out with a combo of Nature's Will and Aggravated Assault to take infinite combat steps with our commander and glide to the finish. These pieces have the added benefit of being useful before we're ready to close things out, which longtime viewers will know is valuable in your combo pieces. Korvold has an uphill battle to establish a foothold, and it's clear that the Magic design team tried really hard to keep the flavor and feel of the original, while also being weak enough to make up for how totally broken the original is. It's never realistically winning before turn 6, but the threat it presents once in play means it's often removed quickly, so when we play him, we want it to be an explosive finisher. As difficult as that is to pull off, piloting it is a blast and makes for games that you won't soon forget.
A very special thanks to all my amazing patrons. When I started this channel, I wanted to talk about deck building decisions with my videos, but in practice what ends up happening is that I talk for 30 minutes about all the nuance of a deck, which is longer than I'm comfortable with posting to YouTube. Here, patrons can request priority deck techs, access extended discussions on their favorite decks, in-depth guides on complex game actions, and more.
So if you enjoy this content, consider becoming a patron today. One of the things my patrons have made possible is a special series of deck techs that I'm really excited to show off to you guys. When I finally get them all uploaded, I'll be giving away a special collection of altars and tokens that I've made, corresponding to each deck on the channel. For example, for the Merkle Lord of Bones deck, the prize is a set of double-faced altars of the most prominent cards in the deck, whose backsides are set in the constellation frame with updated text to show that they're acting as enchantments now. For every 1,000 views on each video, I'll increase the prize pool for that deck. All you have to do to be eligible to win is be subscribed to the channel.
Consider supporting the channel today. If you like this video, here are some of the decks I'm working on next, so if you like what you see, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any, and check out the playlist in the top left for more. Thanks for watching!